All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is Wednesday afternoon. Hope the week is going okay. The day is going okay so far. And we're going to do a couple of Rashis from the fourth Aliyah today. The fourth Aliyah, we see Avram Avinu emerge as sort of a different piece of his character emerge. We've seen Avram the Bal Chesed, we've seen Avram Avinu the loyalist, we've seen Avram Avinu the spiritualist, the monotheist, we've seen Avram Avinu in many guises. Avram Avinu, yesterday we saw the peacemaker, the idea of splitting with Lot, and the idea that when he says, I'll go right, I'll go left, not really a total split, but being there for him and saving him and wanting to help him and to maintain the relationships. We've seen Avram Avinu in so many different ways. But today we see Avram Avinu in a new way, and that is Avram Avinu the warrior. In the aftermath of the split with Lot, the Torah tells us in the fourth Aliyah about the war of the 4 kings and the 5 kings that waged war against each other. At this time, all the kings of the area. I wouldn't call it a world war, but certainly a regional war of great magnitude. And one of the parties involved is, of course, Melech Sodom. One of the parties in the 5-king coalition is Melech Sodom. And the 4 kings attack their region. As a part of the attack on their region, they end up taking Lot as a captive from the area of Sodom. Not only Lot, but they took all the property of Sodom and Amorah and everything, including Lot. Vaikchu et Lot vet rechusho. They take Lot and they take all of his possessions, and the Torah describes Lot here as Ben Achi Avraham, the son of the brother of Avram, the nephew of Avram. Vayelchu v'hu yoshev b'sdom. They take him away, captivity. So Avram Avinu doesn't necessarily know this is happening. As we know, he already split from Lot, so he wasn't together with him. But the Torah tells us, Vayavo hapalit vayaged la'Avram ha'ivri. The palit, the refugee, which we'll come back to in a second, comes and tells Avram ha'ivri, v'hu shochen be'elonei mamre. He's not in the area of Sodom, he's in the area of Elonei Mamre. And they come to tell him that Lot has been captured. Vayishma Avram ki nishba achiv. He hears it. He listens to their words. He understands that Lot is captured. And in response to that, Vayarek es chanichav yilidei beiso shmona asar ushlosh me'ot vayirdof adan. He collects the people of his home. We'll start to analyze all of these words in a second in Rashi. Avram ha'ivri, hapalit, chanichav, yilidei beiso. All of these things we'll come back to in a second. But he gathers them all. 318 of them, and he chases all the way to Dan, which is, of course, way in the north. It's a future description of the area that would be belonging to the tribe of Dan. Of course, there is no tribe of Dan yet, but this is a future description. Dan means all the way into the north. This is quite a big journey and a big battle for Avram Avinu, even from Elonei Mamre. He goes all the way up to the north in order to get Lot back. And of course, he's successful in that endeavor, and we'll learn more about that in the subsequent psukim and aliyahs. But right now, let's go to some of the words over here. Who is this palit? What is a palit? Palit is a refugee. Even in modern Hebrew, plitim are refugees. So who is this palit that comes and reports from the front lines that Lot has been captured? So Rashi says, ha-palit ze Og. This is Og. Og the giant. Og, one of the kings on the eastern side of the Yarden. What is Og doing over here? Why is he the palit? Shepalat min hamilchama. Perhaps the straight reading, the pshat reading of the pasuk is palit, even though midrashically we relate this to Og for a variety of reasons. The simple reading of the pasuk in the word palit, he's a refugee from the war, meaning he's someone who was involved in the war, and he leaves the front lines, he leaves the camp, he leaves the war. He's left over, he's a refugee from the war because he escaped the front and comes to report to Avram. That's the simple reading of the pasuk. Palat min hamilchama. He excised himself from the war. However, as Rashi also notes, Bereishis Rabbah, based on the midrashic, Kabbalistic understanding of who this palit was, Og, we can also interpret palit not just palat min hamilchama, that he excised himself from the war, but ze'og shepalat midor hamabul. He's a refugee, he's a remnant already, not just from this war, but from the dor hamabul, which had come before. Okay, we have the midrashim, which claim that Og was one of the giants, and he was left from the time of Noah. He hung on to the back of the teva. So perhaps that's how we could read into the word palit, a double meaning, not just palit from the war, but palit from the dor hamabul. That's only if you understand that midrashically, og is this palit. If this is just a regular refugee from the war, then it's something to do with og. If it has something to do with og, then he's not a palit from the dor hamabul. But you understand, if you understand midrashically that the palit is og, now you have two readings of palit from the milchama, a refugee from the war, and refugee from the dor hamabul. He comes and he tells Avram HaIvri. Again, it's a little bit strange why Avram here is singled out as Avram HaIvri. We know he's Avram HaIvri, but why here is he being singled out in that way? Ivri, of course, means Sheba Me'ever Hanar. He comes from the other side of the river. He comes from Aram Naharayim. He comes from Haran. He's from the other side of the river. Now he's dwelling in the land of Canaan or Israel, whatever you would call it. So he's called Avram HaIvri. Rashi doesn't answer why he's given that title over here in the pasuk, but I assume everything here is about different nationalities. This king, that king, 4 kings, 5 kings, this territory. So when Avraham is approached, he's approached almost as a neutral party. He is his own kingdom, his own entity. He's called Avram HaIvri. That's his title. He's not Avram associated with one of the 4 kings or one of the 5 kings. He's a total neutral party outside of this war. Maybe that's why he's given the status, the title over here. And then, of course, he enters the war to try to save his nephew Lot. But he's approached here as another nation altogether, Avram HaIvri. Okay, so Vayishma Avram ki yishba achiv. He hears that he's captured. Vayarek es chanichav. It's a beautiful pasuk, an important word, chanichav, and vayarek. Vayarek, Rashi explains, is Vizariz Armid. That's the Targum, the Aramaic translation. And we have other ones like that as well, like in Vayikra, Varikosi Acharechem Charev, as Dayen Becharve Alechem. Harikosi means to arm. That's what we see from these various examples. And also we see Arik Charbi, Torishim Yadi from Yadi from the Shira Hayam as well, talking about Hashem. In terms of his cherev, arik charbi, I will arm myself with the sword. So it's something to do with armament, which makes sense in the context of this pasuk. He takes the people of his home and he arms them by yarek. But who are the people of his home? They are his chanichav. Why are they called chanichav? So chanichim over here means shechinech lemitzvos. So hu lashon haschala knisas ha'adam o kli la'umnos shu'asid la'amod bo. Chanichav means his students, really over here, those who he was bringing into his fold, in his household. And the reason they're called chanichim, even today in modern Hebrew, students or campers are called chanichim. The reason for that is because related to the word chinuch, which is to educate. The reason why chinuch and chanichim is related to education and students is because the real meaning of chinuch or chanoch, lechanech, chanichav, is to form a foundation, lashon haschala. It's the beginnings, it's the entryway, it's the training. And that's what education is. Education is laying the foundation for something that comes much later in life. So all foundations are called chinuch in some way, related to this root, chet, nun, chaf, chanach. So here they're the chanichim, they're his students. What are they his students of? Students of mitzvos. He was indoctrinating all these people into a life of monotheism and mitzvos. They're called his chanichim. They're called his students, his campers in some way, because he was giving them the foundations of what he believed was the proper life of monotheism. Of course, many other examples of this in terms of chinuch, which is the used in many different contexts. We have in Mishlei, Chanoch lanar al pidarko, the famous pasuk, you should educate every child in his own way. So Chanoch, again, here is education. It's starting them off, building a foundation, entering, training them into something. Also, Chanukas habayis. We have a pasuk in Tehillim which talks about the establishment of a home, the home of the Beis HaMikdash, right? We also called, even when we have our own new homes, we call Chanukas habayis. It's an establishment of the home. It's a foundation of the home. It's the entryway of the home. It's the training ground of the home for its future. So many examples of this in Tanakh, a beautiful word that's used in many, many different ways, but all coming back to that same common understanding of chanach, to establish, to train, to provide a foundation for. And that's really the meaning of it in all those different contexts. And the meaning over here of Yelidei Beiso, all the people of his household being called Chanichim, because he was educating them towards a life of mitzvahs. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you hopefully tomorrow.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi. Have a good day.
Be well.
Thank you, Rabbi.